For over 30 years, Austin, Texas has been haunted by the unsolved 1991 yogurt shop murders. On a cold December night, 4 young girls lost their lives in a brutal crime that shocked the city and shattered its sense of safety. The "I can't believe it's yogurt" shop became a symbol of tragedy, and the investigation that followed was plagued by dead ends and heartbreak. Families and the community clung to hope, demanding justice as the years dragged on. Now, in September 2025, a breakthrough has finally arrived, not from a confession, but from the power of modern DNA science. Advanced technology has identified a new suspect, bringing both relief and renewed pain to those affected. For the first time in a generation, the truth is within reach, and Austin stands on the verge of long-awaited answers. Before the headlines, before the case became a symbol of tragedy, this was about 4 girls: Eliza Thomas, Jennifer Harbison, Sarah Harbison, and Amy Ayers, whose lives brimmed with promise and hope. They were more than just names in a news story. They were daughters, sisters, friends, and classmates, each with their own unique dreams and personalities. Eliza and Jennifer, both 17, worked at the yogurt shop after school, saving up for college and talking about their futures. Sarah, Jennifer's 15-year-old sister, was the kind of sibling who looked up to her older sister, eager to spend time with her. Amy, just 13, was the youngest, full of energy, laughter, and curiosity. That night, all 4 were together, sharing the simple joys of friendship and family. They were ordinary teens with extraordinary bonds, girls who loved music, sports, and late-night talks. Their lives were filled with the everyday moments that make up youth, inside jokes, shared secrets, and plans for the future. They were the heart of their families and the light in their friends' lives. December 6, 1991, was supposed to be a normal Friday. The girls were closing up shop, laughing about the weekend ahead, and making plans for sleepovers and school events. No one could have imagined the darkness that would descend that night. Instead, tragedy struck in the most unimaginable way. The girls were found bound, gagged, and shot, the shop set ablaze in a cruel attempt to destroy evidence and erase what had happened. The violence was shocking, senseless, and left a scar on everyone who heard the news. The brutality of the crime stunned Austin, shattering its sense of security and innocence. People who once felt safe in their neighborhoods now looked over their shoulders, and the city's collective heart broke for the families. Parents grew fearful, holding their children a little tighter. The city mourned the loss of 4 young lives, coming together in grief and disbelief. Vigils were held, flowers and notes piled up at the site, and the pain rippled through every corner of the community. The fire and water damage made the investigation even harder, erasing crucial clues and complicating the search for answers. Investigators worked tirelessly, but the destruction left behind made their task feel almost impossible. The community was left reeling, desperate for justice and answers. People gathered at town halls, held rallies, and demanded that those responsible be brought to justice. The pain of not knowing, of waiting, only deepened the wound. The girls' names became a symbol of profound loss, etched into the city's memory. Their faces, once seen in yearbooks and family albums, now appeared on memorials and tribute walls. Their memory fueled a decades-long fight for the truth, inspiring a community to come together, to remember, and to never give up hope for justice. The Austin police launched a massive investigation, mobilizing dozens of officers and detectives to comb through every possible lead. The city was gripped by fear and confusion, and the pressure on law enforcement to find answers was immense. But the crime scene offered few clues. Investigators found little physical evidence, and the trail seemed to go cold almost immediately. The lack of witnesses and the brutality of the crime left the community shaken and desperate for answers. Detectives interviewed hundreds of people, chasing down rumors and tips that led nowhere. Each new lead brought hope, but time and again, those hopes faded. As months turned into years, the case grew colder, and frustration mounted within the department and the public alike. In 1999, nearly a decade after the murders, police arrested 4 young men: Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, Maurice Pierce, and Forrest Wellborn, based on confessions from Springsteen and Scott. The arrests came as a shock, reigniting public interest and hope for justice. The city, desperate for closure, believed justice was finally within reach. News of the arrests spread quickly, and families of the victims and suspects alike braced for what would come next. Prosecutors claimed the teens intended to rob the shop, but things turned deadly. The narrative painted a picture of a robbery gone wrong, and the community wanted to believe the nightmare was over. The confessions were the case's foundation, yet there was no physical evidence, no DNA, fingerprints, or weapon linking them to the scene. This glaring absence of proof began to raise eyebrows among legal experts and the public. Doubts quickly surfaced as families and defense attorneys challenged the validity of the confessions. They argued that the statements were inconsistent and possibly coerced, fueling growing skepticism about the investigation. The entire case rested on what was said in the interrogation room. With no hard evidence, the reliability of those confessions became the central question, casting a shadow over the prosecution's case. The arrests dominated headlines, but cracks in the story soon appeared. Journalists began to dig deeper, uncovering inconsistencies and raising new questions about the investigation's integrity. The path to justice was about to take a complicated turn, as the community realized that the answers they'd long awaited might not be as clear-cut as they once hoped. The convictions of Springsteen and Scott hinged on confessions obtained after hours of intense, often coercive interrogations. Defense attorneys argued the confessions were contaminated, suspects were fed details and worn down psychologically. Both men later recanted, describing threats and pressure to confess. Despite inconsistencies and lack of physical evidence, juries convicted them. Springsteen received death, Scott life in prison. Morris Pierce's charges were dropped, and Wellborn was never indicted. Appeals began immediately, focusing on constitutional violations. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals overturned the convictions, citing the men's right to confront their accusers had been violated. New trials were ordered, but before they could begin, science intervened. DNA evidence would soon upend everything, exposing the truth behind the confessions. The justice system had failed, but science was about to set things right. As the years passed and appeals played out in courtrooms, the world of forensic science was undergoing a revolution. New technologies and methods were emerging, offering hope to those who had been wrongfully accused. The relentless march of scientific progress meant that evidence once thought silent could now speak volumes. Investigators, determined to uncover the truth, revisited the biological evidence collected from Amy Ayers. This time, they used advanced YSTR DNA testing, a technique capable of isolating male-specific genetic markers, even in complex or degraded samples. It was a breakthrough that had the potential to change everything. The results were astonishing. The analysis revealed a clear and definitive DNA profile belonging to an unknown male. This genetic fingerprint did not match any of the 4 men who had been accused and imprisoned for the crime. For the first time, science provided an answer that the justice system had missed. This bombshell evidence directly contradicted the confessions that had sent the men to prison. It proved beyond doubt that the yogurt shop 4 were innocent. The truth, long buried, was finally coming to light. The prosecution's case, once considered airtight, collapsed in the face of this new evidence. The DNA belonged to a 5th, unidentified man, someone who had never been on the police's radar. In 2009, after years of legal battles and public scrutiny, all charges were dropped. The yogurt shop 4 were finally exonerated, free to return to their lives and families. The case, however, was far from over. It had returned to square one, but now investigators had a crucial clue: the DNA of the real perpetrator, preserved like a message from the past. This genetic fingerprint became a silent witness, an unerring guide that would shape the renewed search for the true killer. It was evidence that could not be coerced, manipulated, or ignored. Years of injustice had finally ended for the 4 men, but for the families and the community, the hunt for answers was just beginning again. The pain of the past lingered, but so did hope. The community's hope was reignited by the promise of science. People gathered, united by the belief that the truth would one day be revealed and that justice could still be served. The case remained unsolved, but it was no longer hopeless. The DNA evidence had breathed new life into the investigation, keeping the search for justice alive. Now, the DNA profile stood as the key to unlocking the truth, a silent but powerful witness, waiting to reveal the identity of the real killer and finally bring closure to a decades-old mystery. For years, the unknown DNA profile sat in databases, unmatched. The breakthrough came with forensic genetic genealogy, tracing distant relatives to build a family tree. Investigators zeroed in on Robert Eugene Brashers, a man never before linked to the case. A DNA sample from a close relative confirmed the match. Brashers' DNA was at the crime scene. A .22 caliber bullet casing from the shop was also linked to the type of gun Brashers used in his suicide. Two independent lines of evidence, genetic and ballistic, pointed to Brashers. After decades, the ghost in the machine finally had a name. Brashers became the prime suspect, shifting the investigation's focus. The case was blown wide open, and the search for answers intensified. The question now, who was Robert Eugene Brashers? Investigators uncovered Brashers' chilling past, a transient serial killer and rapist with a trail of violence across multiple states. DNA linked him to murders and assaults from South Carolina to Missouri, including the rape of a 14-year-old and the killing of a mother and daughter. His crimes spanned the 1990s, marked by brutality and the use of firearms. Brashers evaded justice by moving constantly, but DNA technology finally exposed his legacy. In 1999, facing arrest, he took his own life with a .22 caliber pistol. His violent history fit the yogurt shop murders in a way the original suspects never did. The real killer was a transient predator, not local teens. Science had finally revealed the true face of evil behind the tragedy. Naming Brashers as the prime suspect brings long-awaited clarity to a case that tormented Austin for decades. For the victims' families, it's a bittersweet relief, an answer at last to years of agonizing questions. For the wrongly accused men, it's vindication and proof of their innocence. The case exposes the dangers of coerced confessions and the need for physical evidence. For Austin, it's a chance to heal and remember the victims without the shadow of doubt. The breakthrough is a testament to persistence, science, and the family's unwavering fight for justice. Though Brashers will never face trial, naming him is a form of accountability. The truth, after all these years, has finally come to light. The city can now begin to close a painful chapter. Despite identifying Brashers, the case remains open. Did he act alone? Investigators are re-examining evidence, tracing Brashers' movements, and searching for possible accomplices. The family's resilience fuels the ongoing search for complete justice. Renewed public interest, sparked by recent documentaries, may bring new leads. The hope is for final closure, answers to lingering questions, and peace for the victims' loved ones. The search for justice continues, but the end is finally in sight. For Eliza, Jennifer, Sarah, and Amy, the truth is closer than ever.